What's up, world? It's your man Energy, and I'm back with another one. And today, I'm about to be going over my ancestry.com results and then uncovering some hidden truths that ancestry.com is not telling us. And it really has to make you question why. Without further ado, let's get into it. Boom. In 2022-ish, I decided to dive deep into my ancestry for a multitude of reasons. And what I found is something beyond my imagination. So growing up in school, in history class in particular, we were always taught that the Europeans came to America, pew pew, just killed everybody, gave everybody diseases, and then went back to Africa and, just loaded up on millions and millions of African people and bringing them over here. And we were taught that's where our history started. But deep down, I always knew, there's something more to it. Something really ain't adding up because logistically, it just does not make sense. Just logistically, it just doesn't make that much sense to me. So then by doing my ancestry results, it shows that I have indigenous America and Mexico. And that really, really led me down the rabbit hole to discover the indigenous people of America. So I started finding out things about the $5 Indian, Blackfoot tribes, Black Seminoles, Choctaw Nations, the ancient Olmecs, the Mississippi Mound Builders. I started discovering ancient landmarks in North America that I never knew existed. Pyramids in Louisiana, Ohio, Illinois, Mexico. And these pyramids in North America are dating back further than the pyramids in Egypt. So I'm like, nah, something ain't right. Something ain't right. It's a whole piece of history that we have not been taught. And it was low-key overwhelming, low-key confusing, but at the same time exciting because it's I like putting the pieces together. And, I always felt offended by the way they gave us our history. And so let's get into some things. So with all this information, it kind of gets overwhelming, kind of gets confusing. So I decided to hire me a genealogist, a real professional, to really, really go deep into my results and to really tell the story about the stuff that they don't tell in school, the stuff that they don't talk about in media and so on and so forth. So I did my genealogist report, and my genealogist brought to my attention that the oldest human fossil found in the Americas was a Negroid skull and is dating back to 11,000 years ago. And it was found in Brazil, by the way. So now I'm like, nah, this is too crazy. Why would they never tell us about this in school? Why would this not taught in history? And then I thought for a quick second. I'm like, okay, yeah. Why would your oppressor give you your history when they're trying to change and hide your history to keep you oppressed? That would be against of what they're trying to do. So I'm like, okay, that makes sense. So when I found out about this ancient skull from 11,000 years ago, I started to do a little bit of digging. And just so happened there's actually a BBC documentary, and I want to show you a clip from this so you can see what I'm talking about.
South American archaeologists are finding unusual human remains. The skulls aren't European, but they aren't American Indian either. He fully expected Luthia to be a Mongoloid, an ancestor of the American Indians.
9-1.
But then he fed the measurements into the computer.
When we start running the computer and seeing the results, it was amazing because we realized that the statistics, the quantitative analysis we were doing was not showing just people to be Mongoloid. In fact, the analysis was showing just people as anything except Mongoloid.
Was this then the face of a first American? Her reconstruction is confirmed by measurements Walter Nevis has taken of all his skulls.
The first reaction was not to believe in it. But as the results, repeated so many times, and the result is exactly the same thing. They are very similar to nowadays Aborigines and Africans, and no similarity at all with Mongoloids in Asia or with American Indians.
So with this information that they found ancient skulls in America dating back 11,000 years ago, they found hieroglyphs of, what looked to be dark-skinned people on ships and canoes. And it's really showing you that they were sailing years and years and years before Christopher Columbus or even the Native Americans that we know today, years and years before them. And so it really kind of makes you think like, And so when you think about the Olmecs and the unsolved mystery about the Olmecs, about who were the Olmecs, were they the Native Americans, and then why do they look like, Africans and things like that. And just so happened after they found these artifacts and these ancient depictions and hieroglyphs, the museum where this stuff was being held at in Brazil just so happened to be burned down. And I'm like, what a coincidence. At the end of the day, the information is already out there. And so, the past couple of years, I've been seeing a lot. Maybe it's just my algorithm, but a lot of people are debating about who the real Native Americans are. Who are the real original inhabitants of America? Who are they really? So with this question in mind, I thought I would ask ChatGPT to give me a little more clarity to see what they had to say. So when I asked ChatGPT, so the skull found in Brazil resembles African traits? And ChatGPT responds and says, yes, the skull found in Brazil, commonly referred to as Luzia, does indeed resemble typical associated African populations. When researchers examined Luzia's skull, they noticed features of a pronounced brow ridge, wider nasal openings, and more pronounced face characteristics associated with African or Negroid features. So then I asked, why don't the current Native Americans, how come they don't have these same features? It says it could have been multiple waves of migration. One leading theory suggests that America was populated by multiple waves of migration from different regions of the world. Luzia and her group could represent a wave of migration, possibly from populations with physical characteristics of more similar to those of Australia, pretty much the Australian Aborigines and the African population. So could it be the Mongoloids made it to North America around that same time, while the Negroids populated the southern hemisphere around that time? So then I asked ChatGPT, why isn't this information taught on ancestry.com or in schools? So Ancestry says, the reason why there's information about alternative migration theories, including possible presence of Negroid populations in South America, isn't widely taught in schools or featured on platforms like ancestry.com, stems from the dominance of mainstream archaeological and genetic theories and a desire for simplification in education, and the influence of historical and colonial narratives. While these alternative theories are intriguing and continue to be explored by researchers, they remain on the fringes of the academic and educational establishment until more robust evidence emerges to support them. Now, what more robust evidence do they need besides actual ancient skulls, archaeological findings of skulls. And so this could explain the Olmecs. This could explain Christopher Columbus arriving to Hispaniola and seeing copper colored humans. And by them actually wanting to simplify history in a Eurocentric way, it actually creates problems and creates confusion of other groups of people's history, like my Mexico side, like my Black American side. And I really want to put out this information because there are a lot of people arguing online whether Black Americans are indigenous to this land. And this information and this research that I've done today should prove that the Negroid was here before the so-called Native American and, of course, before the European arrived. And the rabbit hole does get deep. I can go further, I promise. So peace to the gods, peace to the earth. And I'm going to see you on the next one.